I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario. With grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold, a drill program will commence this spring to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork. For more information, visit our website, rmroyalty.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guests are Mike and Cheryl Bernas from Quantum Point Health. Welcome to the show, Mike and Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
We're going to be discussing pulsed electromagnetic fields. What exactly are they, Mike, and what do they do, and why should we be concerned about them, Cheryl? Mike, you go ahead first.
Sure. Well, pulsed electromagnetic fields have been around forever. It's about the Earth's geomagnetic field. It supplies the frequencies our body needs to sustain itself in our health.
Yeah, and part of the Earth PEMF, they're actually called Earth PEMF, PEMF, because they're natural, and part of that is also the Schumann resonance. There's other influencing factors as well that play into it, but essentially our bodies are connected to the Earth and energetically. In fact, what they've gone on to discover is that our bodies resonate and have frequencies that match the Earth PEMF exactly. So, in fact, we are essentially charged. We're kind of like batteries that need to be charged up, and we are charged up by the Earth PEMF. So the problem is that what is happening is that the Earth's natural PEMFs are being depleted, and the NASA at this point has calculations where they believe it's depleted by 95%. At one time it was at 20 gauss, and now it's at 0.5 gauss. So what's happening is we are essentially being depleted, and we're at about 10% of what we should be typically. Like, people are discharged essentially, and that leads to disease. We are basically electrical beings, and the amazing thing is that we can actually restore our health through the simple act of recharging the electrical charge of our cells. Okay, so essentially, I want to make it clear that anyone can restore optimal health, and basically you can take anyone and cancel their hip or knee replacement or the back surgery, and they can actually regenerate. Okay, you can actually change the internal environment within your body to one where cancer cells cannot thrive or survive. So, a lot of people don't know about this because it's basically the bottom line is that the science hasn't really been around for the last 50 years, like the actual physics. There's been about a 50-year period where really none of us had the physics to understand it properly. But now physics is front page news everywhere, and it's all about the superstring theory and quantum physics and energy healing, and we're moving beyond Einstein and Newton, right, into a new world of energy medicine. And the problem is that our medical schools just kind of need to catch up and move into the 21st century. It's that our doctors aren't really properly trained right now, but once they do get caught up, then they'll be telling everybody about PEMF therapy.
The bottom line is the world needs to shift their thinking from the old, outdated Newtonian physics, the idea that we're solid, and understand that we are not solid. We are vibrational beings. We're made up of energy. And our health is dependent on energy. It's like a battery and a remote control. When the batteries deplete, the remote control gets weak as it depletes and it stops working. Well, our cells are no different than a battery. Those batteries need to be recharged. And when our cells come to optimal charge within the right voltage potential, then everything goes to work. In other words, the way we're designed is to be perfect, to be continuously optimal in the way that we function. Our organs talk to each other. They naturally want to make us or sustain us in our health. But if we don't have the resources to recharge and put the energy back into our cells, then the cell voltage drops, and as a result, our health begins to fail. And ultimately, then it increases the aging process. We are now engaged in a dying process, but a very unhealthy one. And as you can see in our society, chemicals are not the answer to an energy problem.
How exactly does it work, and why are we seeing a depleted natural magnetic field?
Well, the depleted magnetic field is just a fact. I mean, I'm, not an expert on why the magnetic field is depleted. It just is, there are logs recorded. The British Royal Navy has recorded logs over the last 300 years where they measured the magnetic field every day, and they showed a depletion of 50% just in the last 300 years. And as you may have heard about how they're having to continually renumber runways all the time because of the shifting magnetic field, like all the airports. It's common knowledge. All leading scientists or anyone who is a scientist knows that that's a fact. Why exactly? I don't personally know. But what I do know is that there is a solution. The nice thing is that since the Earth's magnetic field is rapidly disappearing, and mind you, it's not going to disappear. If it was to disappear, it would become a dead planet. We would all die, right? So it's not obviously going to happen. I mean, scientists do, what they're saying is that there's going to be a polar flip at some point. But basically, we've woken up to the fact that we can actually bring it back into our lives. Science has created devices, medical devices, to simulate and duplicate the Earth's natural magnetic fields, or natural PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic fields. So now we can just buy a PEMF therapy device. Typically comes as a body mat you can lay on the mat. And just in 8 minutes, you can receive all the life-sustaining frequencies that you should be getting naturally from the Earth. And it recharges every cell in your body in 8 minutes. So it brings all the cells back to optimal health. It turbocharges the mitochondria, so you're producing massive quantities of ATP, which is extremely important. If you're familiar with ATP, adenosine triphosphate, it's essentially what provides the energy to all of the metabolic functions within the cell. It's also essential for one of the most important cellular functions, which is maintaining the transmembrane potential, which is like sodium-potassium exchange at the membrane of each cell. It's absolutely critical for the function and the health of the cell. And so ATP is necessary to maintain our transmembrane potential. And basically, if our transmembrane potential begins to deplete, the cell dies. It becomes cancerous.
Yes.
Mike and Cheryl, what got you interested in electromagnetic fields?
Well, initially, we became aware of the dangers of electrosmog, the kind of unseen enemy of the cell. It's there are frequencies that are emanating to us everywhere we go, as you know, through our cell phones, our smart meters, our Wi-Fi, microwave ovens, hair dryers. It doesn't matter what it is. These frequencies are so strong, they are causing a dissonance or interference pattern to our natural geological or biological oscillations. Our frequencies we're thrown out of balance. It causes our cells to weaken. It drains the energy from our cells.
Right. And I just want to jump in here and say that, because, essentially, we're made up of, molecules, atoms. If you go down to the atomic level, our electrons, they spin, they oscillate, okay? And depending on what cell you're talking about, whether you're talking about a liver cell or a brain cell or a skin cell, they actually oscillate differently depending on what organ it's coming from. And that oscillation of the electron within the atom is what it actually produces a frequency. Okay, these are the natural biological frequencies that we're talking about. So our body has its own natural frequencies. Now, the unnatural electrosmog, or this dirty electricity that we're exposed to all the time, it actually interferes in our natural oscillations, our natural frequencies. And so this affects our charge of our cells, the charge of our body. And essentially what happens is the cells are unable to communicate with one another. It's inefficient and unable to do cellular metabolism properly. Everything basically breaks down. And so when we became aware of this, we have 3 children with autism, and I decided to leave my career and dedicate myself 6 years ago to becoming an expert in autism and to seek to recover my children. And one of the things was, of course, this dirty electricity and electrosmog. I searched and searched, did a lot of research, and I'm an electrical engineer, and I'm a researcher at heart. So I dug the world, and I discovered these PEMF therapy beds that essentially they correct the damage from the electrosmog. They restore our natural frequency of our cells, and just 8 minutes, and the natural frequencies, which are Earth's frequencies, at very specific intensities and frequencies that match our biological ones, they basically put our cells into resonance, okay, fully charge up our cells, and they correct all the damage from the electrosmog. So this is very important. This is one of the devices that we purchased to recover our children. And there's miraculous results, absolutely miraculous results.
Now, of course, bringing our cells back into a healthy state by counteracting the negative effects of electropollution, that's a positive benefit. Then we went on to discover the far more reaching benefits that this has on the entire body, from healing non-union fractures, soft tissue injuries, you name it. The studies on this are enormous and really miraculous what it's doing.
Yeah. Well, back in 1993, Columbia University published a paper about PEMF. And in this paper, they said that it's already been used for over 20 years. So, and it's been talked about in places like Yale for over 50 years. So this is not new. In fact, the only reason why we don't know about it is because doctors don't tend to talk about it. Simply put, doctors really only tend to do what's paid for. And as a result, we need to educate and advocate for ourselves. If you were in Germany, on the other hand, they've paid for this treatment for PEMF therapy for 50 years. So even 50 years ago, under the insurance plan in Germany, you could go get one of these pulse magnetic units in your home instead of getting a hip replacement. So when something is paid for by the government, we tend to do it, right? But in fact, the FDA approved PEMF therapy over 50 years ago for repairing non-healing bone fractures. And they knew that pulse magnetic therapy could heal a broken bone that hadn't healed in years, where the surgeons had given up on it. And it's widely used in North America for that purpose. 10 years ago, the FDA approved it for treating depression, after really essentially nothing else had worked. And it's eradicated depression and essentially left people with a new brain. About 5 years ago, the FDA approved it for brain cancer. Of course, it is a Class 2 medical device with Health Canada. A couple of years ago, Health Canada finally approved it. So it's been around a long time. It's very well known. It's just that, now people are really starting to catch up with the whole energy medicine and energy healing concept. It's sort of just finally beginning to spread, Yeah,
it's also, it increases your blood circulation, your oxygen intake into the cells. It reduces swelling. It, optimizes bodily function. The matter is, if we had continual access to the proper PEMF frequencies, which in fact work between 0 to 30 hertz range roughly, okay?
0.5, yeah.
Yeah. Then our bodies would be healthy. We would have homeostasis on every front. We wouldn't need any medications. Our immune system would be as strong as ever. All right? But the beauty of this is that when people are exposed to these PEMF frequencies, their cells will revert back into healthy cells. And this is a marvel. And Dr. Bruce Lipton proved that very well in his research, how you could take cells in a petri dish, put them into a negative environment, and watch those cells turn bad. Take those same cells, put them back into a healthy environment, and those cells will revert back into healthy cells. This is the nature of it. Just understanding the nature of the cells, how they respond to the environment, and this environment that we're talking about, the healthy environment, will be exposure to the PEMF fields, the right fields, not any frequency, very specific low pulse magnetic field frequencies. And this is what Dr. Adey called a biological window of opportunity. If the frequencies are too strong, the cells won't respond. They can't resonate. But when the frequency fits the biological window, just like putting a key into the lock, the cell responds, and then the resonant effect will take place. When that happens, then you get ion exchange into the cells. Everything just starts to work a whole lot better. And then we take a low voltage, a person, say, with cancer is below 20 millivolts across the transmembrane potential. Well, with this technology, you're able to improve or enhance the voltage up to its normal range, and in doing so, the mutated cells revert back into healthy cells. The bottom line is we need to change the batteries in our remote control.
We'll have more with Mike and Cheryl Bernas right after the break.
Lotus Ventures Inc. is a BC-based medical marijuana company poised to launch into the rapidly evolving cannabis sector. Lotus is in the final review stage of the Health Canada approvals to become a licensed producer, having arranged facility financing of up to $12 million, plus building permits for its prototype indoor production facility. Shares trade under the symbol J on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Visit our website at lotusventures.ca.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Mike and Cheryl Bernas. Mike and Cheryl, you're saying that this technology has been around for the last 50 years and well known. Why haven't we heard anything about it lately? Because it seems to be coming out of left field. All of a sudden, it's here.
Yes, well, it was just recently, a couple of years ago, certified by Health Canada as a Class 2 medical device. So it's, fairly recent, fairly new to Canada. It's fairly new to North America, in fact.
About 10 years in Canada and the U.S.
Yeah, it's been used in, as I mentioned, in Germany, the health insurance companies have been paying for this for over 50 years now. It's been used widespread in Europe and Japan and other places of the world. And very simply put, doctors tend to recommend and do what's paid for by insurance. So the average MD hasn't really bothered to learn anything about it. That's changing. A lot of doctors are starting to get on board. It is revolutionary. It's a revolutionary new energy medicine. And Dr. Oz just did a special on it in 2011. So it's a while back now. It's 2011? I think it was 2011. It seems like a long time ago, but where he said it is the revolutionary new cure for pain. and
changing the practice of medicine.
Yeah.
Slowly, but it is moving. It's there. It's not a threat to the big pharma at this point.
Dr. Oz sort of was the first one to really introduce it to North America, I believe. So if that was in 2011, that was a while ago now, but it's actually quite well known. It's spreading like wildfire in eastern Canada. Even here on the West Coast, a lot of people know about it. In the States, and it takes time. People are programmed, right? People are very programmed by the allopathic medical system. People tend to want a quick fix solution, run and get pharmaceutical drugs or do something that's going to instantly address their symptoms. And so a lot of people, they're not as open-minded as we would hope they would be, that in fact our bodies are capable of healing themselves. We're self-healing, self-regenerating systems. Disease is essentially, really what disease is. It is a physical and an energetic disconnect from nature. That's really all it is. People are not getting proper whole foods. You go into the grocery store nowadays and really, I don't think that maybe 95% or 99% of what's in there isn't even real food, And so it's a disconnect from real whole foods, from proper hydrating water. People aren't getting enough sunlight. And then, of course, the pulse magnetic fields has been proven now to be an essential element for life. It's, in fact, it was first discovered in the early 60s when Yuri Gagarin, a Russian cosmonaut, went into space and was in space for 90 minutes, went around the Earth once in orbit. He came back and he had to be carried off in a stretcher. He was so weak. He went on to develop severe osteoporosis, depression, all kinds of health problems. And they couldn't figure out what happened and why was he so ill and so sick. So the Russian space program and NASA worked together, did a significant amount of research, and they went on to discover that he had actually left the Earth's natural geomagnetic field, the Earth's natural pulse magnetic fields. And they discovered for the first time the very critical and essential connection between our health and being tied to the geomagnetic fields of the Earth. So it's like if you put somebody into an ohm cage, a cage which is designed to block you from all the Earth frequencies. After 90 minutes in that cage, a person can barely lift their arm. They're so weak. So it's quite critical for our health. And so, of course, they discovered this back in the early 60s. So NASA went on to develop these coils which generate this natural Earth PEMF, matching it in its frequency and intensity. And they've now integrated that technology into all the space station, the suits, the space suits that they wear, so that humans can go into the space and, or into orbit and survive, right? So we represent a full body mat. We represent a company out of Switzerland that we believe in our research is the most, was a leader in the industry in home PEMF systems. And they use these NASA patented coils in the mat. So it's something that's been very well researched. In fact, there's over 10,000 research papers in peer-reviewed journals and over 2,000 plus university-blind studies done proving the efficacy of PEMF therapy. And NASA themselves did a $3.5 million 4-year study on it as well, where they concluded that pulse magnetic fields that match that of the Earth are the most effective form of cellular repair and regeneration of any other type of treatment that exists on the planet. So pretty powerful stuff, pretty powerful claims.
You can download that report off of our website and read it. There's a lot of information in there.
And what's that website?
It's www.pemf.ca.
PEMF.ca.
We'll have more with Mike and Cheryl Bernas right after this.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mike and Cheryl Bernas. Mike and Cheryl, everything that we do in today's society always comes down to one thing. How much does this cost and how available is it?
Well, it's very available. Anyone can order one today if they like. You can order it directly from PEMF.ca. We're actually doing information sessions every Saturday at 3 p.m. So a person can sign up for a free information session at that website if they would like to find out more, find out what options are available. There are a number of different solutions that can accommodate different price ranges. It starts at $3,900, and there's a few different options between that price point and $6,500. Is that the top? The professional unit, I believe, is around $6,500. There are also very good payment plans for somebody if they know that the person who needs this the most are the elderly, people who are often on a very fixed and limited income. And the owner of the company out of Switzerland is an amazing guy, wonderful man, who just cares so much about people. And he has done everything he can to accommodate different income levels. So there is a payment plan available where people can get into it for I think as little as $65 a month. So, if somebody has a chronic disease of some kind, they have multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease or, just a severe chronic disease, it's what price you put on your life, right? Or on your health. So it's definitely affordable.
Can people just get treatments like once or twice a week kind of thing and pay for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do offer that as well. So they can come and just get treatments. We recommend it. It's good for somebody to come and try it out and actually experience it firsthand. And
somebody suffering with chronic pain will notice the benefit immediately. A long distance runner would use it before and at the end of his long run, and then he would recognize he could go up and down the stairs, say, not worry about, he doesn't feel the lactic acid effect. He feels robust, but hey, I can move, I got mobility. Some people, you can see the direct benefits there. Other people with, chronic illness they may feel relief, but it's more of an ongoing, longer term, exposure that will bring about the noticeable difference. And if you're fatigued and burnt out and with various effects from electrosmog, you'll notice your energy levels will immediately perk right up. And, you'll
sleep better.
But if
definitely have brain fog goes away. Much higher levels of energy.
Yeah. So,
and speaking of lactic acid, Mike, the thing is, like, oxygen, as we know, is one of the most essential elements of life, right? And one of the main roles of oxygen is actually the final electronic sector in the creation of ATP in the mitochondria. Okay, oxygen's main purpose is to create energy in our bodies, and so when we're lacking sufficient oxygen, our cells revert to a fermentation cycle, okay, or a lactic acid cycle, or an anaerobic respiration cycle. Those are kind of like different names. And what happens basically is that the ATP starts being created without the oxygen, and lactic acid ends up being a byproduct, okay? That's why people get cramps when they're in endurance events and so forth, because our body is not delivering enough oxygen fast enough to the mitochondria to make ATP. Okay, so this is like an anaerobic pathway where only 2 molecules of ATP are produced with lactic acid as a byproduct. So less energy and a more acidic body, basically, right? So the thing is, like, this PEMF therapy, one of the main things it does is it increases oxygenation into the cells, and it's synonymous. Also, it makes our body more alkaline and changes the pH of our body. There's a direct relationship between the pH of our body and this charge in our cells. And there's just so much. There's so many benefits. It's like almost too much to say. It lowers blood viscosity, improves circulation, microcirculation. In other words, our blood ends up being, instead of something thick like ketchup where our heart has to work harder to pump it, it becomes something more like red wine, you know, where it just flows so much easier. Red blood cells circulate so much better in the little capillaries of the body, little tiny capillaries where red blood cells can only pass through one at a time in a single file line, like in the eyes, like macular degeneration and problems with the eyes. Here you get a much better improved circulation through these little capillaries. So it's actually been also researched quite heavily with problems with the eyes because of the increased circulation. It obviously addresses that problem. Yeah, it just goes on and on. Again, I can't emphasize enough the transmembrane potential. The actual voltage around each cell, the cell membrane, is absolutely essential. You get a sodium-potassium exchange, which happens at this membrane, which is, again, so critical. We need to have the cytoplasm inside our cells. It needs to be at the right charge. For example, our brain cells, neurons, if we don't have enough potassium ions inside the cell, then the neurons can't do their job properly. They don't have the electrical potential to fire. Our muscle cells need to have that potential within the body, the right charge. Sorry, it's within the cell. You need to have the right charge for contraction. So it just goes on and on and on. You know, the charge of the cell is everything. It's everything. And if your transmembrane potential isn't charged up like it should be between 70 and 100 millivolts. And when you lay on this mat 8 minutes a day, you have fully charged membrane potential. Okay? It's optimized. Then when you have that charge, what was I going to say now? I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, there's testimonies all over the place of people that are recovering, have recovered from like kidney failure. They've been coming back from suffering with cancer.
Yeah. And sorry, I remember what I was going to say. When you have your fully charged cell membrane, then what's happening is you're now able to take in nutrients, to take in oxygen, and as well the intracellular waste within the cell can be spit out. You can get rid of it. Carbon dioxide, which is you can get rid of that. If there's heavy metal toxicity within the cells, that needs to be removed as well. You have to have a fully charged cell membrane in order to have the proper ion transport into and out of the cell and the proper nutrients. So really, it's really just about charging up the cell so that it can do its job. And
it cleans us right up.
Yeah, and actually, cancer cells, once your cell membrane begins to deplete, it goes down from 70 millivolts. That's where you start seeing chronic disease kicking in and setting in. Once the cellular membrane reduces down to 30 millivolts, I know, Mike, you mentioned the 30 millivolts earlier in the interview, that's when the cell becomes cancerous. Because at that point, basically nothing's getting in, and your cell becomes anaerobic, okay?
The cell requires 75% of its energy to replicate itself, so you can see the problem when our cells are low in voltage. The energy for adequate replication isn't there to supply all the information that it needs, and so as a result, our cells begin to mutate. We start to fall apart, and we start to become ill.
Yeah. Well, we knew back in 1961 that Dr. Otto Warburg Warburg, who received a Nobel Prize for his work in cancer, he told everybody back in 1961 that cancer only starts in cells that have become anaerobic. Okay, the reason they're anaerobic is that they don't have the energy to survive with normal metabolism. So they've gone into a fermentative, unhealthy metabolism. Okay, he said this basically it's because they're toxic, right? He got a Nobel Prize, but nobody really paid attention to that. But now you can see that there's definitely a connection where if you have an anaerobic state within your cell, it becomes cancerous essentially. And in fact, this is a crucial modality. PEMF therapy has been used for many years as a crucial modality in cancer clinics, with numerous studies showing a reduced growth in tumors.
In Germany, you can also download the PDF for all the cancer clinics in Germany.
Yeah, so we have documentation on all the different diseases, and how PEMF has been researched and helped people with various diseases. Of course, we're not permitted to say that PEMF therapy actually will heal anything, right? You can't say that. But what I can say is that you can create an environment within your body with PEMF therapy where a disease cannot proliferate and thrive.
Your body takes care of itself.
Yeah. So this is really like a supplementation. It's a very necessary supplementation that we need to optimize our cells of our body so that we can become self-healing, organisms and restore homeostasis.
Again, Mike and Cheryl, where can people find out more information about your company and more information about pulsed electromagnetic fields?
Well, people can give me a call directly. They could call 604-569-5560. They could visit our website at www.pemf.ca.
And that's PEMF.ca.
Yes, as in pulsed electromagnetic fields.ca. And we'd love to talk to people. They call us from the U.S. They call us from anywhere and ask questions. And people do their homework. It's always good to do your due diligence, research it for yourself, and then that information will lead people to a decision that they need to make for their own well-being. And all we do is educate people and show them what it can do, and they take it up to either buy one or come to us for some treatments, whatever the case might be.
Yep. And we, just one last comment. I just want to say, we made a decision a couple of years ago. We had to dedicate ourselves to spreading the word with as many people as we could, just because we were helping people with this technology. People were coming into our home and we were essentially seeing them walk in intense pain and walk out pain-free, and people were getting their lives back, and we were so moved. We were just that it was nothing short of miraculous. And I mean, there's an 87-year-old lady in a wheelchair who could barely move. She had dementia and didn't even know her family for several years. She was so imbalanced, she needed a full-time attendant. And she received a PEMF treatment, and in her very first treatment, there was a significant reduction in her pain. She started moving her legs, she had better balance. And by the second treatment, her family was shocked because she started making sense. She knew who she was, and she knew the family, and that was just after 2 treatments. And there's people who've needed a heart transplant who no longer need it. There's autistic children that within 1 or 2 sessions start talking when they haven't talked for 2 years, and we get eye contact in as little as 3 minutes. So it's just amazing. It's just giving people their lives back, and so that's why we decided we really need to dedicate ourselves to become experts in this. We are PEMF experts. We've thoroughly researched all the science, and we are more than happy to answer any questions anybody has.
And this is not about diagnosing anything. You leave that to the doctors, and not to undermine the medical system at all. However, this is a wellness machine. This technology, when you're optimized at a cellular level, everything takes care of itself, and there's no side effects, and it's licensed with Health Canada, approved for circulation, a variety of things, FDA recognized as well. So, I mean, really, I guess the proof is always in the pudding, and people need to at least try it out and discover it for themselves, to recognize that the future is here.
Yeah.
The old allopathic understanding of medicine has to be buried.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to disappear without a fight, because there's too much money involved in it. However, people need to take a stand for their own well-being and take measures to protect themselves. Yeah. In a world just gone mad. For example, fibromyalgia here in our world is nothing more than electromagnetic field deficiency.
In Japan,
yeah.
Fibromyalgia is actually called electromagnetic deficiency syndrome.
Yeah,
it's
right.
the exact same condition in Japan as it is here, but it's called electromagnetic deficiency syndrome. They know a lot more in Japan than we know here about the power of electricity and magnetic fields on the human body.
Yeah. You get someone with that on a mat, and right away, wow, what happened? Everything seems normal. We feel good again. Our pain is gone.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Welcome to the 21st century. We've moved forward to a quantum world, an understanding of energy as a medicine, and recognize that we need to tackle our conditions with energy, not with chemistry.
Yeah.
And when we learn that, the faster we learn that, the better off we'll be.
And everybody has to take responsibility. I mean, we are in a toxic world now. It's everywhere. And we're getting it in our food, our water, our air. Now with the electrosmog as well, you just can't escape it. You cannot escape it. And we have to take responsibility. Each one of us has to educate ourselves and advocate for ourselves to start detoxifying, start changing our lifestyle. Of course, PEMF therapy optimally works best when you're eating properly and you're also making lifestyle changes, right? I mean, that's where you're going to see the most significant change. Mm-hmm. But what I find for a lot of people is that when they're so weak, have no energy, they don't have the strength to make lifestyle changes. They just don't have it. And they just give up. So at least with the PEMF therapy, what it does is it brings them to a new level of wellness and stores their energy so they can actually start making lifestyle changes and start slowly, improving other areas of their life as well. And then they will ultimately come back to full homeostasis.
And for healthy people like us, we use it twice a day, like clockwork, because we know what's going on and we feel great. The benefits are enormous, but I think, and just as a side note, this stuff turns on stem cells as well as lengthens the telomeres at the end of the DNA strand, which means, wow, what is it doing at a DNA level? It's lengthening our age. We're slowing down the aging process as well as making things work a whole lot better. And what can you say, right? So it's not just for the chronically ill. It's for everybody because it is a fifth element essential for life. As water, oxygen, food, heat, we need PEMF. And without it, and if we're completely cut off from it, we will ultimately die very quickly.
Mike and Cheryl, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, Jim.
My guests have been Mike and Cheryl Bernas from Quantum Point Health. Check out the website, PEMF.ca. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests can be emailed to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.